Hello, and welcome to our TED Talk. Today we plan to inform the audience of the biggest lie from our government in this generation, a lie that 45% of Americans refuse to believe. The murder of the notorious sex trafficker, ringleader, and pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. While official reports claim he died of an apparent suicide, there are too many small details that are rare alone for suicides, but almost impossible when put them all together. With ties and close friendships with many Hollywood elites and political authorities, it is presumed he had information on those who were very common in public. With a court day coming up, we know that this man was set up in a position to call out all the others who had joined him. So in order to avoid this, he was killed off. And who better than the husband of a presidential candidate and con visitor to the island than Bill and Hillary Clinton? Now, to introduce our main victim, such criminal of this conspiracy theory is Madison Lawson, our researcher on his life. Take it away, Madison.
I will be covering the background of Epstein today, including his early business career and what led him to be in prison in the first place. Epstein first started his career as a math teacher in New York City, but eventually began working at the investment bank Bear Stearns. Shortly after discovering his abilities in the business industry, he opened up his own financial management firm, J. Epstein & Co., in 1982. This firm was specifically targeted to people with, and I quote, with assets more than $1 billion. Epstein quickly made his money, though it is still speculated on how he made such a large quantity so quickly. On July 8, 2019, Epstein was charged with one count of conspiracy to commit sex trafficking and one count of sex trafficking with a minor. Epstein pleaded not guilty to both of the charges. He denied bail immediately and remained in jail until August 10th of that very same year. After this scandal, several media platforms confirmed that Epstein had committed suicide. However, due to the nature and timing of his death, questions and rumors are still circling about Epstein's life, crimes, and fortune. Mark Epstein, Jeffrey Epstein's little brother, was in fact so suspicious of his brother's murder that he hired a famous forensic pathologist, Michael Baden, to take another look at his brother's quote-unquote suicide. This, of course, only added fuel to the Epstein death fire. Mark actually told many that despite not being extremely close to his brother, he knew that he had enemies everywhere because of his powerful business background. So, were there enough powerful people connected to Epstein to have set up his murder? Absolutely. So, how did the murderers create the illusion of a suicide? Isabel Marble is here to talk about how the autopsy was more than strange and clearly shows the signs of a murder.
Hi, I'm Isabel Marble, and I'm here to talk to you about the autopsy of Epstein. The autopsy has come to light and explains that suicide was clearly set up. But first, I'm going to explain the situation of prisons. The prisons have recently released information that explains prisoners were often not given the proper care or security that they should have had. Many prisoners were abused, raped, and beaten. There might have even been deaths not reported. Some prisoners were also on suicide watch by the staff, but most of the time, the staff did not do their jobs. There were deaths reported because of that. Now, the information that I've recently been given explains that the security camera footage was also deleted at the time of his death. Now, the autopsy. The family had hired a private forensic scientist by the name of Michael Baden. His findings state that Epstein's case of death was because of a broken neck. Adding on to that, Baden had also told the family that broken necks were uncommon in suicide, but very common in homicide strangulation. The results from the autopsy stated that Epstein's body was discovered with busted capillaries. This points towards manual strangulation as the reason of death, which was murder. The forensic scientist explains that if Epstein had died from being hung, then his lower body would have had purple-maroon coloring, which was not the case. In the photos the pathologist provided, or the forensic scientist, Epstein's lower body was very pale, but it was not purple-maroon. He goes into more detail by explaining that Epstein's face and the upper body would have been pale and had clotted blood vessels that if he had hung. In Epstein's case, he had ruptured capillaries. It was also stated that Epstein had 3 broken bones in his neck, which was unheard of for hanging and points towards strangulation because of the placing of the broken bones. They were towards the front of his neck. The family was also told no details when it was changed on his death certificate from unconclusive to suicide. Okay, now we have Anna Grace here to tell us the death of Epstein's relationship to celebrities.
So where do the Clintons come into play with the murder? With a track record of around 53 close associates committing suicide, it is very easy to point towards the political couple. Why would they kill Jeffrey off? He was in jail awaiting trial, and it was hoped that he would give names of some of the others involved in the crimes in order to receive a lesser punishment. This included the Clintons. With the release of the flight logs, which was a list of famous celebrities who visited his island, one can clearly see Bill's name from his multiple visits. When the building on the island was searched, there was even a painting of him hanging up in one of Hillary's dresses. They have a history of being buddies, as well as many other celebrities, such as Donald Trump and Prince Andrew. While awaiting trial, many of those who were close to him or traveled to his island were more on edge that he would mention their names in order to get a lesser punishment. If someone depended on their credibility for their career, news of involvement in Jeffrey's actions would ruin them. So the best way to make sure he doesn't call out their names then was to end him. Sounds crazy, like out of a movie, but for Epstein, it was his end. During a very politically divisive time period, Hillary Clinton was constantly in the news about previous and upcoming elections. If word got out that her or her husband were involved at this time, everything she said would lose its accountability. So with all this in mind, it is almost too easy to point to a family with a track record and publicity. They have a crooked track record, as heard by Trump's favorite name for Hillary Clinton, our crooked Hillary. It was obviously felt pressure to do something to save their name, even though it was murdering a disgusting man whose job was more than despicable. They still committed a horrible crime. They prevented the knowledge of many more involved in the sex trafficking rings to be given to authorities. Most importantly, they lied to the country as a whole. We were told that he committed suicide when he was supposed to be on suicide watch. It is assumed that the Clintons simply paid off the guards so they could cut off the videotape and let the action happen. How are we supposed to believe in the authorities and politicians if they are able to get away with such absurd things such as murder and lie to us about what truly happened?
In conclusion, the autopsy, the background, and the celebrities that were mentioned all clearly point to the murder of Epstein.